Good afternoon, class. Today will be the first demonstration on how to create a figure drawing using cross triangulation. I will demonstrate and discuss the process behind the first two stages of cross triangulation, which is the envelope and the very basic blocking. Once we get a handle on that basic method and technique, then I'll elaborate on that and create another demonstration and exercise. I will also be handing out or uploading an actual outline of this process so you can have both the demonstration as well as the literature to follow along. Very good, let's get started. Okay, so in order to create an effective cross triangulation method, we're going to establish several key points. So I'm going to use this as a way of getting angles and transferring information as well as measuring. So we want to create several different things. We want the placement on the page, the size, and the general shape. So those are the three things that we want to establish. So the questions will lead you to the answers. You have to obviously investigate those answers to make sure that they are worthy to continue moving forward. So in this case here, we're not doing site size, we're doing cross triangulation. So the model was standing there. What we would do would be the standing leg is frontal, so I'm going to use that there, and I will use the bottom part of the foot, and I'm just going to draw a line here to create my bottom. So that is more or less the end of where the drawing is. This foot's going to extend out a little bit more, but I'll leave a little bit of room in the bottom. Then on the top here, I have several different markers that I can use. You know, if this line was extended, looks like when I did the demonstration, there was a pretty direct break between the front part of the hair and the back towards the back plane. There's also the forehead and also the hairline here. In this case here, I think that in order to make things as easy as possible, let me just see what lines up. Looks like I could almost get a vertical line here. This line in here may not be that good. This line here, I think is probably going to be my best option. So I would consider this here and this. Actually, let's go to the top here. So this is going to be considered my top plus. This will be considered my bottom plus. And now I have to find the halfway mark. So more or less the halfway mark is in the lower pelvic girdle, right above the V. Now this is going to change depending on the figure. So you're going to have to constantly make sure that that is the case. Don't assume that the generality fits the specific of a person. So you know that more or less it's going to be in the lower third, but you always want to check it. Okay, and so in here, let's just make sure that this is true because maybe I did a mistake when I did the demo. Okay, so we have our lower half and our upper half. Okay, so in this case here, looks like I went to the top of the hairline. So I'm just going to drop it a little bit because I'm not going to do that in this case for this drawing. So I'm just going to eliminate that line there. I'm going to drop it down just a little bit. And in this case, I guess I want to go there. So I'm going to go to about here. Just going to put a little marker a little bit higher. It's worth taking the time to be accurate. You don't want to end up in a position where you are trying to correct a mistake and backtrack. One, you lose momentum. Two, one could argue you also lose your confidence. Okay, that looks good. So in this case here, I'm going to create my horizontal line. and I'm going to create, looks like it intersects at that point there, so I'm going to use that. Double checking it. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now I have those three markers. I have my center plus, my top plus, my bottom plus. Now I'm doing this on this drawing here. You would actually figure that on the model. So this is the model. So I'm just showing you how it's going to be. So in this case here, I would transfer this information, and since we're doing this more or less the same size, even though I'm not showing you site size per se. So I'm going to have something here. I want to make sure that this rod isn't bent. And I'm transferring this information over. Looks like it is bent, so I'm going to use this. So I want to minimize mistakes. So I just noticed that this thing was a little bent, so I'm not going to use it initially as my setup. I'm using a plumb line instead. So I'm transferring this information over, keeping my eye focused. Then I'm going to confirm, and that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to extend this line because I don't know exactly where the figure is going to be right now. I just know these basic questions. So notice that once I take the plumb line away, I'm keeping my eye focused on that marker, and then I'm checking for accuracy. That looks pretty good. If there was a mistake, I would just go back and tweak it. And when I was satisfied, I would go ahead and move forward. Okay, so I'm going to now, looks like I have an angle going here. So I want to make sure that this doesn't run off the page. So I'm going to say my center plus is going to be here. It looks like there's a little bit less information there. So before I start doing all that, that looks good. I'm just going to check. Okay. And normally I would stand at arm's length. So, but if I do that, I'm going to be out of the picture plane. Normally I would stand like this. So you wouldn't actually see me. I'm almost behind the camera at this point. But for the demonstration purposes, I'm going to try to stay as close as possible for now. Okay, so I've got my center plus. This is creating my envelope. So the first stage is creating the envelope. I'm basically creating the height, the placement on the page, and I'm going to get very general shape. Now, cross triangulation, there are different methods. Some methods deal with just getting the overall shape. What I've done is I've kind of created a hybrid between site size and cross triangulation that allows us to get, I guess, more or closer to what the figure looks like than starting off as an abstract. Okay, so now that I have that, I want to make sure that I can use now this here in order to find the angle, the relationship between center plus and top plus, right? It's not a vertical. So a vertical is here, it's slightly at an angle, maybe negative, 3 or 4 or something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and do this way so you can see even better. And then transfer that over. Okay, it needs to move over just a little bit. Going to erase the mistake. Going to go back, check it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Just going to check one more time. Okay, very good. So now I have the correct relationship between this one and this one here. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to go ahead and this one almost looks like a vertical. And I'm going to place this marker. Just want to make sure, because I have two lines here. Oh, what was the top one? So notice that I'm always erasing the mistake, but I'm erasing it after I've checked. So I correct the mistake. Maybe a hair over. I'm going to check it again. Okay, perfect. All right, so now I have my center plus, my bottom plus, and my top plus. So I have exactly the same distance, and let's just check that again. And I'm doing this thoroughly in order to make sure that you guys see how important. So that adds up, and it should be the same distance here to here, and that also adds up. So now I've broken my figure into top half and bottom half. So I know that for instance, the V in here has to lie below the center plus. So if it ends up being above, it should create an alarm bell. Okay, so in cross triangulation, the method that I like to teach is we want to, now that we have the height, so we have the height here, the height here, the height here. So now we want to start creating the width. So we have this marker here. So from here, we're going to go ahead and create this projection line from here to the shoulder. So something like so. So, and what I'm getting now is the projection from the forehead. So I make a little mark, drag it over. Okay, that looks good. And then connect the two. Normally I draw really light, but I'm gonna try and make it a little bit darker so everybody can see. Let's clean up that line a little bit. Okay, so notice I have a projection here, but in fact, I don't know where that line ends. I'm going to use this now, and I'm going to triangulate from here to here. So wherever they intersect is going to be the answer. So I'm going to drag this over, place it on my center plus. Wherever they intersect, it's telling me that it intersects somewhere here. Now I can tell you right now that looks off because when I go here, it should be much lower. I'm going to go back and check again. And check again. You can see that it is somewhere here. I'm just going to erase the mistake because I don't want to keep that. I'm going to go ahead and check it. That thing is a little crooked, so I feel like it's throwing me off just a little bit. A little lower. Okay, so now if I go from here to here, it's still telling me that it needs to be lower. So I'm going to go here, check this. Okay. Check it one more time. Okay, and I just want to check as well here to make sure that I have the correct projection. Okay, that looks good. And now here, still telling me that it needs to be a little lower. So it's telling me that it should end up here. So I'm going to check it one more time. So there's a mistake somewhere along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and check this to this because I shouldn't have that discrepancy. That looks like just a little bit too much. So which is telling me that the center plus is off. So it should be here in relations to the other one. So this thing must be pretty crooked. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to get another tool. Okay. So now if I place this here and here, let's see if that's where the mistake. Okay, so sure enough, I should be somewhere around here, and I was here. So this is a perfect example. One, of that I'm human, and two, that don't accept what you've done as the truth. Now, because I did this and I made 4 marks or so and I was wrong each time, I started thinking either I'm wrong here or I'm wrong there. So now that I've changed this, I'm going to go back and check this one down here, because if I've changed one, it's probably going to affect the other one. So I'm going to go back and check that, and sure enough, it moves it over pretty much the same distance that I moved it over here. So, and some people, you know, when I teach, they're like, this method is pretty slow. You know, when you're learning something, first of all, you shouldn't try to obtain things in such a fast and expedited manner. You should really be investigating. You know, I don't necessarily, I know I'm drawing a figure or painting a figure, but I don't necessarily know that figure. So, and the figure's moving, is alive and well, blah, blah, blah. So we want to make sure that we're not committed to any one thing. We're always challenging. We're always asking questions. We're always making sure that the answers to those questions add up. So don't assume that because you've done it 4 times that it has to be right. You know, it takes time to become familiar with something, 1, 2. It also takes time to warm up your eye-hand coordination. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and check. Okay, so I should be right around here. And now let's just take our plumb line. In this case, because we are doing it this way, we can almost do sight size. That will be the second demonstration. Okay, so if I do that, this create a parallel line, so I can move forward. Just going to erase the mistake. Going to put this here. I can see now that I have a projection going this way. So I have a projection going this way. Let's just go back and confirm that, which is telling me more or less I'm going to be somewhere here. I'm going to go back and just make sure that those two add up. A little bit lower. Confirm it. Okay, that looks good. So this line is a little wobbly. Just going to clean that up a little bit. Like so. Okay, so I have the shoulder, and the angle of the shoulder is going more or less this way. And I'm going to erase the extension, right? I don't need all of this. I just need really the tail end of that. And we can argue that this is going in this direction here, so I can go ahead and put that projection there. I don't know where it ends, but I know more or less we're going to have something like so. Okay, so now on the other side, I have this coordinate here. I do want to eventually get this one here, but because I have this here, I'm just going to use this marker here, and I'm going to go ahead and transfer that. I already have the line there. It's telling me that it's somewhere here. I'm going to go back and check for accuracy. Okay, looks good. I'm going to, because I have this image here, I'm going to double check and make sure that the width is adding up. So go from here to here. here to here. It's telling me that it should be in just a little bit. So I'm going to check that again. Okay, that looks good. So now this one here, I'm going to have a projection going this way. I'm going to erase the mistake. And I'm going to go back and cross-triangulate this way. And it adds up perfectly. So cross-triangulation, what does that mean? So let's put over here, So cross-triangulation is the idea that two coordinates will only yield a third in one specific location. So this line and this line here will only intersect at one point, which will give us the angle, the length of line, etc., etc. So AB can yield C. And on the flyer that I'm going to give you, it's going to talk about that. So now I've got my clavicle, I've got my shoulder, so I have my height to width relationship here. I can go back now and also go ahead and create the projection line here. I notice that it's in just a little bit from here. Notice how I'm holding my pencil allows me to really go ahead and do any lines from different directions. If I was doing this, I would be limited really just to doing this and this. Maybe this way as well. Okay, so now that I have this shoulder here, I can go back and get the beginning of the back of the cranium, which is saying it's somewhere around here. Remember that this is also going to be a little bit higher, so I'm going to go ahead and do that projection line now because I don't want to forget that I do need to add some height to the back part of that head. Erase the mistake, go back, check it. Okay, it looks pretty good. Let's clean up this line just a little bit. Like so. Okay, so I have this marker here. I know that this is going to also extend down, and then eventually it's going to go in this direction. I don't really want to spend time on that marker at all. Okay, so I have this marker here. Very good. So from here now and here, I want to go ahead and establish not only the upper trunk, but the lower trunk. And I think the lower part is going to be a little easier, so I'm going to tackle that first. I have my center plus, and in this case, it's going to be easier to go this way. I'm going to go ahead and calculate this marker here. So it's telling me that I'm going to be something like so. Something like so. I have a projection line, and it goes something like this. I don't have to draw the entire line. Oops. So I'm just going to draw the tail end of that line, going something like this here. Because I made a correction, I'm going to go back, double check. Okay, that looks pretty good. At least this part does. Just going to erase that other part. And now from shoulder to here, I have a projection that's more or less like so, and seems to intersect right around here. I'm going to double check. So you can see that it's a slight negative to that line, which is telling me that it should come in a little bit more. I'm going to go back and check it again. Okay, perfect. So that marker is telling me that it ends here. At this point, I can already start seeing the silhouette of the figure. So because I have this coordinate right here, this coordinate by and large will yield two lines. And that in general is true, that one coordinate will yield a line going up or down or sideways, left, right, etc., etc. In this case, I have one that's going something like so. And if we draw through the arm, we're going to end up having something more or less like this. So if I draw through that, I end up more or less something like this. Let's make that line a little bit straighter. Something like that. Okay, good. And then this way, I'm going more or less this way. So I'm going to put that like that. Confirm it. Looks good. And I have that projection line. Where does that line end? I can go ahead and triangulate and see that it's going to end just a little bit below. So it is going to end here. And then I have a projection going this way, going something like so. Going to confirm that projection. Okay, it looks good. And then go ahead and draw that in, clean up that line now. Something like so. I don't know where that line ends right now, so I'm just going to leave it like so. I do want to go ahead and put in the tilt of the pelvic girdle. So it is going through the form something like so. Let's confirm that. Confirm. Now remember, this is not an absolute truth. The only absolute truth was this, this, and this. And even that may change because you may have something wrong, and once you start piecing it together, notice, just like what I did here when I moved it over just a little bit. Okay, so I have this side of the form already. I'm going to go ahead and use the two shoulders to lock in where the belly button is going to be. And I need that in order to start closing up this figure. Okay, so it's telling me more or less it's here. I'm going to go on this side here and confirm. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's triple check that and see this here. Well, it looks like it could drop just a little bit more. Looks like it's saying that it should be here. I'm going to go back and check it again. Sure enough, it needs to be a little bit lower, like so. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and also see where the center of the clavicle is going to be based on this information here. So we have something like so. Okay, now that I have this here as well, I'm going to go ahead and use this to find out where the lats and the obliques meet, and they meet somewhere. Okay, that was pretty good. That was a good guess. And then I have a projection going something like so. I'm going to use the shoulder over here, and it's telling me that it ends here. And I have a projection, looks like the armpit or something like that. Okay, good. I'm not going to, especially when I'm working from life, it's a different story when you're working from a master copy, but when you're working from life, in general, the arms and hands and things like that, extremities are going to move the most. So you want to avoid doing that. I've got the projection of the shoulder. That way I can always go back and help the model get back into the pose, because eventually the model is going to settle. So we want to be aware of that. So I want to go ahead and get where the chin is going to be. So I have a projection from the shoulder that is saying that it's somewhere around here. And I'm going to use the center plus to lock in where that's going to be. Okay, good. So, okay, welcome back. Took a little break. We're going to go ahead and finish up now. You can see that from the master drawing, I've simplified quite a bit. And that is the objective, that you want to create the least amount of changes in line direction as possible and still capture the essence of what you're seeing. So I'm going to go ahead and try to break this leg up into from here, and then from here just a small jut out, and then shoot all the way down. Okay, so but before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and calculate the angle here, and then the overall projection. Like so. Then I'm going to calculate from here, lower part of the genitalia. Okay. Then from here, I'm going to go all the way to here. So I have an overall projection like so. Okay, so I don't know where that's going to end yet. I'm going to go ahead and use this to help me locate where the kneecap is going to be. So I have an overall projection. Let's confirm that. Okay, that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to go ahead and just confirm the foot over here. Okay, that projection looks good. And then projection from here to here, here to here. Okay, that looks good. So I have this one, and I'm going to use that to go and find. I'm going to use this. So it's telling me more or less something like so. I'm going to double check that. In just a little bit. Because I made a change, I'm going to go ahead and double check it. Okay, that looks good. And I have a projection going this way. And then another one going this way. I want to know where this is here, but in order to get this here, what I'm going to do, actually I'm going to go ahead and do a projection here. And again, I'm simplifying things at this point. You can see now the shape of the figure is pretty much established. Okay. I want to make sure that the distance from here to here looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and find the angle shift, which is going to be somewhere here. Just want to confirm. It is going to come in just a little bit. So I'm going all the way down to the calf. So if I look at that overall projection, okay, that looks good. Now going back. Okay, so this in here is where this line is going to start going in. Just going to suggest that without actually completing it. And then I'm going to go ahead and just make sure, okay, that looks good. So that overall projection looks good. I'm going to go ahead and just make a note that this is also where this part of the leg is going to come in. Now that I have this marker here, actually I'm going to go ahead and use this one. I can find where that quad, so we're going to end up being something like so, and then this is going off more or less in this direction here. Very good. Okay, so now from here I can go ahead and find this marker here. So that is going to be more or less somewhere here. And then I have an angle shift going this way. Confirm that, looks pretty good. And then again, I'm going to use this one since it's established. I'm going to go to about here. And then from here, I'm going to shoot down all the way to the ankle. Okay, very good. And from here, let's see, actually from here, I can calculate now where that ankle is supposed to be. It's supposed to be somewhere around here. It looks like that ankle looks a little bit long, but I'll just presume that it is okay for this demonstration. Okay, that looks good. Again, I'm going to simplify this. So we're going out in this direction from here to here. Okay, that looks good. So from here should end up. Okay, that looks good too. And we're going to, like so. I'm not worried about that big toe situation from here. Okay. Just want to make sure again that the width, okay, perfect. I feel like I did something wrong there. Yeah, this should be here. Good. And then from here to the calf. Good. And go back and check this one. not going to finish that off either. Okay, so from here, now you can really see. Okay, that looks good. This figure is coming together. And then you can start getting into more and more specifics. So I want to make sure that I establish this V in here. Okay. And this quad looks a little thick, so I'm going to just go ahead and make a measurement. Sure enough, it should be. The arm. And you can pretty much see now how things are just going to relatively easily flow together. So, bottom of shoulder. Pectoral muscles. And that's, oops, I forgot one thing here. Let's make sure this hasn't gotten too long. No, that's okay. This looks a little wide in here, so I would go ahead and measure. And it looks pretty good. I'm going to make a measurement from here to make sure the negative space. Looks like it can come in just a little bit. And then here I'm just going to simplify it